Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Coming to you after a nice little holiday break. After a less nice 6-3 loss for the Colorado Avalanche against the Arizona Coyotes, the team that continues to just love to end the Av streaks. Um, I mean, there's not very much to talk about with this game. The Avs didn't play very well. Um, I wasn't surprised at all. Um, they literally got to Arizona today because of the CBA rules or something like that. Um, they um, hadn't, you know, hadn't played in 3 days. Two roster players were injured, so they added two new guys. I mean, Cagliano wasn't out for too long, but so lines were completely different, and they didn't get any practice in over the 3-day break, and they didn't have a morning skate today either. So it was just all sorts of weird. Um, it wasn't. Like they're not excuses, but just these aren't like you look at the weird stuff that happened in this game, and you're just like, this just isn't a big deal. There's some things about the Avs game tonight where it's like, okay, that's not good. That needs to be fixed. But um, on the whole, I wasn't entirely, like there's just they got a little bit unlucky along the way. Um, Basically, yeah. I mean, so another bad start for the Avs. Arizona kind of dominated the first 5 minutes and they scored because of it. But fortunately for the Avs, they got a power play right afterwards and they scored within like 10 seconds. And it seemed like they had like settled down. They didn't. And they let Arizona score again. And then things, were a little, back in Colorado's favor. And the second period started, and then they gave a power play goal on some nonsense. Then they started to kick some ass again. Cale Makar scored, and then minutes later, Rico Rantanen scored, but it was overturned because of offsides. You'll find no complaints from me on that call. Good offsides call. The only thing I'm mad about with that is the fact that they didn't catch it the first time. I'm not entirely sure how that's possible. That was very blatant offsides. Like that, there's no reason for them to have missed that call. Um, Whatever. Um, then just that the Avs. It felt like the Avs had a chance at that point. Then Arizona got a power play for a nonsense call. To be quite honest, just an unacceptably bad call. Um, and they didn't score on it, but they scored right after it. This is probably the worst goal Alexander Georgiev's given up in a while. Um, I don't find it to be awful, but like if this was during a different phase of the game, this probably wouldn't have been that bad. But give it the fact that it went from the swing of the Avs being tied to now being back down by two, it makes it a little bit worse. Um, Whatever. Um, the Avs just Erik Johnson just it was one of those dumb nights for Erik Johnson, and he stranded Sam Jordan on a 3-on-1. The Coyotes score on that, and at that point, it's kind of feels like the game's over. Mikko Rantanen does get a goal a little bit after, but it's too little, too late. Especially doesn't help that Brad Hunt takes a delay of game penalty, and then Clayton Keller gets the empty netter, and then the game's over. So, yeah, I first goal, is a product of the Avs. Just the Avs need to figure it out. They need to learn how to start on time. This has been too many games in a row where they're just not starting on time, and now they're starting to get goals against them. They had a few games where it was like they weren't starting. They didn't start hot against St. Louis or Nashville the first time or the Islanders, but they 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 were getting outplayed. But now Now they're getting goals scored against them, and that's they're with this team. You can't start behind the eight ball. You have to give yourselves as good of a chance because this team just isn't good at scoring goals. So you need to score the least amount of goals possible to win. You need to put the least amount of offensive pressure on yourselves. And giving up a goal in the first 10 minutes of the game, especially on the road, even though it's in Mullett Arena. Their first it was the Avs' first trip there. It just doesn't work well. It's just not an effective strategy, and I think part of that is on the team. Part of that is on Jared Bednar. He needs to get his team prepared to play. This has now become an unacceptable trend. And I don't know if how much of this is his fault, how much of this is the players, but it can't continue this way. This needs to be fixed immediately, especially when you're going to be playing these better teams in Los Angeles, Vegas, and Toronto, or Toronto and Vegas. It just needs to be fixed immediately. So it's too slow. A slow start where you're not getting scored on is one thing, but a slow start where you're like losing is just unacceptable. They need to figure that out. What else? Second goal. So the first goal I don't really have a problem with. I mean, it's a fine shot through a screen. The Avs just need to play better on the whole. Maybe give Georgiev a line of sight on that one. Second goal, it's a nice play from the Coyotes. Cale Makar lost his stick, so Lawson Krause got separation on him, and that was what allowed him. Really nice backhand, nice play from him. Nick Bukestad sets a pick, which I will continue to pound the table for. The fact that is illegal, but no ref has ever called that. And I mean, if I was a Coyotes fan, I'd be pissed if they started now. I think it's a thing as the NHL as a whole, because it is literally interference. And this is not the NBA, but whatever. Doesn't really matter. Really nice play. Just well designed from the Coyotes. Well executed as well. I'm only going through the Coyotes goals for right now. Just to get the negative out of the way. Then their third goal, like I said, nonsense. The Coyotes try and make a play. Nick Ritchie screws it up. It goes off Devontae's skate right to Nick Schmaltz, and he's just like, cool. There's no goalie here because he followed the play. I'll just score. And that did not feel good. And then their fourth goal, this is the one that I was talking about. You probably want Georgiev to save. He is getting screened. It feels a little bad because I maintain that likely if that goal doesn't get called, if that penalty doesn't get called, I don't think this goal happens, because the Avs were going at that point. The momentum was really begun. But they still need to be better. He needs to have a save there. I don't think this was a bad game for Georgiev. I mean, relatively it is. This isn't a game where you're like, oh my God, this guy just sunk the team. But this is a game where you're like, okay, he definitely should have and could have done better. Some saves that he probably should have made. You need some clutch saves from your goaltender, but given the way this team has been playing lately, the way he's played, I'm not really concerned about it. He's a goaltender of rhythm, and that 3-day break definitely screwed with that a little bit. It was clearly evident tonight. So maybe if he gets in a little bit more rhythm again, hopefully, he has been shown to be a little bit streaky. Hopefully he doesn't continue that. Hopefully he just is good again, against these other teams, because he's probably going to be starting the next few games because they're playing quality opponents, and because Pavel Francouz is now hurt. We don't know for how long, but anyways, then the Avs give up a 3-on-1 where Erik Johnson pinches for a reason. Erik Johnson pinching is something that I think should happen literally as few times as possible, because he just provides such limited offensive upside. And he has such poor skating that I just don't feel like it works well very much. I know some people were upset at Sam Girard for this one, and it's there's some things that maybe he could have done better there. But as a defenseman defending a 3-on-1, it is incredibly hard because you can't do you. He does his job really. He stands between the Coyotes' great execution, a triangle. He stands between the base of the triangle, like right here between these two guys, cutting through the passing lane, and he stands in front of this guy to try and take away a little bit of the shooting lane. And there's just so many options there that it makes it hard. And he does let the pass seep through him, which I don't think is great, but I also think it's a very nice pass. They put it as close to the toes of his skates as possible. And it's just a really well executed play. It's just as a defenseman on a 3-on-1, you just do as much as you can. You try to take away as many options as possible. And I mean, he took away the slot shot, and he forced the two guys at the base of the triangle to make a nice play, and they did. So that's unfortunate. And then obviously the third goal's an empty netter. So yeah, those goals, and honestly, so the expected goals for the Coyotes ends up being 4.49. So Georgiev only saved minus 0.5 tonight for the expected goals, which isn't good, but I mean, it shows the Coyotes had 17 high danger chances tonight. The Avs defense was just not there, and I think that's the problem with these kind of laggier games, these weird games where you don't get a morning skate, you haven't played in a while, and especially when your lines are all weird. The chemistry, that's the thing that comes hardest is the defense. So I think that's just part of the circumstances, but it's just not good enough. The Avs have been doing a really good job of kind of limiting that lately. So hopefully this is just a one-off, and given the circumstances, that probably played a role in it. So hopefully that doesn't continue. I doubt it will. Hopefully not. But I mean, it's just you can't let that happen, no matter what team you're playing. So that's the negatives I have. Yeah. Oops. There's just that's all I have for the negatives. Another negative I have, I mean, McDonald and McDermott didn't even play 4 minutes tonight. That's not great. At least Hudon played 7. So clearly Bednar trusts him. Don't know why he wasn't up before, but whatever. It's a little frustrating. I mean, I know they were losing, so it's a little bit different. I don't know. When you're playing guys like this in a game that you're losing by by 2 or 3 goals, I can understand why you're not playing them as much because you still have a chance of coming back, and they're not going to provide the offense you need. I think not playing them when you're only losing by 1 is silly, because I just don't think they're not a big liability on defense. So I feel like it's not really worth it at that point, but whatever. And yeah, so that's it. Positives. Cale Makar finally scored a goal. That was on a goalie. That was pretty cool. I could definitely tell he was moving and grooving on offense tonight. It was the first few shifts, or it was the second period it was the first period of the game. He was really walking that line with some gusto, and he just kept making this same pass where he would walk across the line and Taves would cut down the left boards and he would just cut it through the middle. And the Coyotes were just not defending it. But yeah, Cale definitely found some offensive spunk tonight. I mean, he was on the ice for 2 goals against, both of which were pretty unlucky. I mean, he dropped his stick. I thought Taves was fine tonight too. He was good at defense. wasn't quite the same on offense, and he made a really bad play that led to the Coyotes' empty netter. So that doesn't make me as thrilled with him tonight, but definitely didn't play bad by any stretch of the imagination. Mikko Rantanen continues to be pretty good. Ben Meyers, Alex Newhook, and Evan Rodriguez were super dope. I thought Dennis Mulligan has continued to be solid. He had one play early where he zipped by a Coyotes defender. He just wheels up. That entire second line was pretty good tonight. They continue to just do good things. Evan Rodriguez and Alex Newhook continue they just work together. It's just a good offensive pairing of guys. Newhook needs to start scoring goals, though. Obviously, the entire team needs to score more. They did technically score 4 goals today, if you count the one that Mikko scored that didn't count. Technically, so the ability is there to score more than 3 goals. If they could do that in one of these, hopefully next 2 games before the year of 2022 is over, that would be fantastic, because the last time they scored 4 goals or more in a game was December 1st. So it will have been an entire month without scoring 4 goals. So in a game, pretty much. So if they could get 4 in one of these games, that would be great, especially against a team like the Leafs. They're very offensively potent. I feel like maybe the Kings, you might be able to do a low score there, but we'll see. Just he needs to finish. He's showing some flashes, but he's just got to score more. It's good to see him progressing and finding good chemistry with Erod, but it's still, he just needs to start scoring goals. The goals need to come eventually, because he's got the talent, he's got the ability. He's either got to start scoring goals or he's got to start getting assists. He's got to start showing up on the score sheet somehow, in a meaningful way. I thought, and Ben Meyers, I thought pretty much the exact same thing. They were both moving. They were both getting themselves dangerous opportunities, places. They just weren't scoring tonight. The Avs didn't do a bad job creating chances. It's just they gave up so many the other way, and they didn't finish on enough of theirs. They did get a little bit unlucky. Cale Makar just destroyed a post, loudest post I've ever heard. And EJ, who I thought was the Avs' worst player tonight, even hit a post and got an assist. So, this game it doesn't mean a lot. It's the day after the holiday break. Like I said, there's a bunch of nonsense that went into this game. So it doesn't mean a lot. It doesn't feel good giving up 6 goals to the Coyotes, but you look past the stuff that doesn't really matter, and it's just kind of whatever. It's fine. You don't like it because you were riding hot and you're playing a tough stretch of teams, and you need any point you can, especially against the Coyotes. They're gonna need some guys back, especially before Toronto. Toronto is too good for this team to beat. I know Toronto has that kind of ability where they lose games they probably shouldn't, so there's a chance with that, but that's pretty much it. The Avs definitely need some guys back or anything, or something's going to need to give there. They're either going to need guys back or they're going to need to finish against the Coyotes, or Georgiev's going to literally have the best game. The defense and Georgiev's are going to have the best game of the season, but they also play the Kings, who just beat Vegas tonight. So it's another tough opponent that they're going to need to beat. Makes it you need to win one of these next 3 games. The Kings is probably the most likely. I know the Knights have been struggling a little bit, so beating them And, who doesn't like beating Vegas? So that would be cool too. We'll see. Yeah, it's just losing a game like this and getting no points, especially to end your losing streak, doesn't feel good. But I mean, the team's so injured again, and there was all that stuff that it's not a big deal. But when it comes down to it, they just didn't play well enough. No one really did. I think Cale Makar, Devontae, Alex Newhook, and Ben Meyers are the only players where I'm like, and I mean, Mikko Rantanen was fine. I mean, there's a point where you're like, Mikko Rantanen scored technically 2 goals. One of them was dope as hell tonight, where he batted a puck out of midair, and he's been the only guy doing offense for this team. I guess Evan Rodriguez was pretty solid too, and Dennis Malkin was all right. But yeah, so I mean, like I said, there's just not a lot to talk about. I just, yeah, it was a little bit predictable. I mean, I think they had more to give most of, if not the whole night, but games like this happen. Glad no one else got injured is another positive. So I mean, I'll give my 3 stars. Honorable mention, I'll give it to Newhook and Meyers because I thought they were both going pretty good tonight. But they didn't really have anything to show for it. 3rd star, Mikko made some really nice passes that guys just couldn't finish, mostly JT Compher. A lot of pucks died on JT Compher's stick tonight, which is just not good enough. He's a good enough NHL player that he needs to score one of these. And one other positive I should say is that this game is a little bit easier to muster considering you won 4 in a row, but it doesn't feel good given the schedule coming up and the opponent that you played. But whatever. Anyways, 3rd star goes to Mikko. Had 2 dope goals, only 1 counted though. Had 2 goals, one of them was dope, and unfortunately that was the one that counted. Completely fairly, by the way. Yeah. And then 2nd star I'll give to Evan Rodriguez. Had a really nice shot. He was making some really nice plays tonight. I think he went a little bit quiet. I really hope I was talking with my friend at the bar. I was like, he we saw this with Pittsburgh last year. He's just got to keep this up. And what makes it a little bit more realistic is that he hasn't been ridiculous. He's not like a point per game pace. He's at a pace that you'd expect him to stay at, and at a good second line pace. If you could just stick with that the entire year, that would be fantastic. And he's playing with guys that he's probably going to play with. In fact, he might play with even more skill as the year goes on. So we'll see. He's been very good still. 1st star, Cale Makar. A nice goal. I mean, it makes it feel a little bit better that JT Compher didn't score when he makes a nice pass on this goal. Really nice pass, but also he needs to be able to do more than 2 things, more than one thing good. So yeah, really nice game from Cale again. Good offense, good defense. Scores a goal, gets an assist as well. Yeah. Bad player, EJ, just making stupid mistakes. Just not it tonight. This was just your very average bad EJ game. It seems like whenever he has these bad games, he always does something good, but the rest of it is still just so bad that it doesn't really make a difference. He gets an assist, but the play I was actually talking about was that slide breakup he had on a 2-on-1. Super bad from him tonight. Not great from Sam Girard either. I don't think he was nearly as bad as EJ, but he wasn't as good. We're seeing a little bit of spunk from him, honestly. I don't want to make excuses for Girard, and I don't want to blame, but it's clear he just doesn't. Jack Johnson and Erik Johnson. It's not just the last name, but it's just their style of play just does not suit him well. He needs Josh Manson or Bowen Byram back. He needs to play with one of those 2. So but apparently neither of those two are close because this team can't catch a break, especially Bleau and Byram. And that is incredibly frustrating. So yeah. The only other thing I want to talk about, weird officiating tonight. I didn't have any problem with it except for the fact that the Avs had one power play at the beginning of the game. The Coyotes got a power play for literally no reason. The tripping wasn't anything close to a trip. And the Avs had no makeup call. Every single NHL game you watch and you see that call, everybody in their minds is like, okay, well, a makeup call is coming soon. And 99.9% of times they're correct. For some reason, tonight it wasn't. And they score, and it wasn't like, if it was, God, but it's just unacceptable, honestly. The inconsistency with the officiating in this league. Like, how it doesn't make sense. Because, I mean, if makeup calls weren't such a prominent and frustrating thing for in this league, I don't really, I don't think I'd have as big of a problem with it. But the fact is, you see it so often. You see a bad call, and then the refs are like, okay, well, that was bad. We need to give this team a power play back, especially if they get scored on, which I know they technically didn't, but it was like 5 seconds after or something. And I maintain that goal would not have happened if there was no penalty. But it's just not. It's you can't set a precedent and then ignore it. You can't, and that's really frustrating to see. It's whatever. It wasn't the reason the Avs lost. It's just another shining example of this league's officiating having no idea what the hell they're doing. Yeah. I mean, the Avs power play went 1 for 1 tonight. The penalty kill was 1 for 3 technically, or 2 for 3 technically. The Avs got pretty unlucky tonight. They got screwed by some circumstances, but they just didn't play well enough, and that is unfortunate. There's some reasons why it's okay. There's some reasons why it's not. We just have to see how the rest of it plays out. Really, now we're back to, now that Nuke is gone, it's back to this team needs to survive, and they just need to pray for guys to come back. It sounds like Nate has a potential to come back on New Year's Eve with this team's injury luck. I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. In the meantime, some dudes are going to need to step up. Cale Makar, hopefully, maybe the flood dam is open from that one goal. Alex Newhook needs to start scoring some goals. Maybe Ben Meyers finally breaks through. Dennis Malgin getting a goal eventually would be great. Haven't had a Logan O'Connor goal in a long time. JT would like to have his one hot streak of the year right now. That would be a good time to have it. Otherwise, I just don't know how much there is. The Avs are going to have a few tough tasks ahead of them tonight. My big key for them is start the game on time and finish. And that's kind of been the story of the last few games. But they did win the last 4, so there's not too much to complain about. Oh, well, that's fine. Like I said, shorter podcast today, but whatever. Yeah, gonna need to step it up on Thursday, but that's up to the team. And we'll see you guys on the next podcast on Thursday. That'll also be a little bit later. Sorry, the podcasts have been so late. I've had things going on. It's the holiday season. Things get busy. So, yeah. Don't know what it is about the Coyotes, man, but just not great. Hope you guys had a good holiday. Hope you guys have a great Wednesday. Hump day, baby. We'll see you in the next podcast.